All right, here we go, everyone. Another awesome episode of the All Around Adventure podcast. And I'm excited to welcome Naval Officer and Leadership Coach Anthony Waite to the show today. Anthony, what's going on, brother? Thanks so much for taking the time for joining me today.
Hey, thank you for having me, Josh. It's an honor to be here, dude.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to chatting with you. I missed you back during Memorial Day weekend. I was down in Dallas on a high caliber hunts with Colin, and he said that you were supposed to be there and you had it all planned out, but I guess something came up last minute. It looks like you weren't able to make it this time around.
Yeah, work got in the way. I had a couple of things that got tasked with last minute, and being part of military, you know how that goes. It's oh, by the way, and so I was ready to go to Dallas, and I was excited for it because I went with them down here in San Antonio, and it was amazing. And I was like, dude, I'm ready for the next one. And Kyle Creek was going there too, and we hooked up on the last hunt, and I was like, man, I was excited for it, and it fell through, and I was like, man, this sucks. So, but I'm looking forward to another one for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to probably be like an annual thing for me because I actually did have a successful hunt. I was able to take home a good amount of boar meat and, just nice. Being able to bring that wild meat home, share it with some of my loved ones. It's an incredible feeling. I have to say, yeah. I can't recall any time in my life where I've been so excited to prepare food for another person other than just sharing them like some wild meat that I hunted myself. So it was pretty awesome. But for sure though, man, yes, we're going to have to, link up down there at some point to do that again because it was a lot of fun and you missed out because it was a good time hanging with the fellas, let me tell you.
Yeah, it's always a good time for sure.
Well, yeah. So as you've alluded to, and as I mentioned earlier, yes, you are a military man, and I kind of want to start there because I think probably much of what you talk about now in the realm of leadership, it stems from your military experience. So just kind of take us back a little bit here. What actually inspired you to join the military? And I guess I'll also even just specifically hone in on the Navy in the first place.
Yeah, it's funny people ask that all the time because they see where I'm at now as a naval officer and a leader and kind of, done a lot of great things. But what inspired me, funny enough, it wasn't inspiration or motivation. It was desperation.
Desperate. Yeah. That's a first for me, brother. Okay. Do tell.
Yeah. I graduated high school in 2003 and, first in my family to graduate. And, I came, like many people, came from a rough upbringing and I didn't really have any real guidance. And, it was tough, and I got a lot of trouble and just really struggled a lot. And when I graduated high school, my stepfather, somebody my mom had married when I was about 12, he punched me in the face. And, and so after that, I left home. I made the decision to leave home and no rhyme or reason, no plan in place. And so I was kind of, bouncing from couch to couch and just kind of living, wherever I could just to figure out like where I was going to get my next meal, and as a young man at 17, it was a dark time in my life because all my friends were getting ready to figure out where they're going to go to college, and I was trying to figure out where I was going to get my next meal.
Right.
And one day I woke up and I went to the recruiter, and funny enough, I went to the Marine Corps recruiter, and I waited there for 2 hours, and those dudes must have been out at PT or something because they never showed up. And I was like, dude, okay. So I was like, you know what? I'll go next door to the Navy, and I went there and I went to the recruiter. And I was like, hey man, like I want to join. They're like, well, okay. I was like, I need to leave like soon. And they're like, well, hold on. There's a process involved. And of course, and I went through the process and so, I didn't tell anybody. I just, I up and joined and what they have is delayed entry program. And that's where you get your job and you wait until your time to class up. And at that time I came in, my job was aviation support. So I was slotted to go to the Navy for aviation support. The problem was that it was a 6-month wait. And I told him like, man, I don't have 6 months. Like I need to go soon because I don't know what I'm going to eat tonight. And so I went home. That was on a Monday night. They called me Tuesday morning and said, hey, we have medical opened up, but you leave Friday. I was like, sign me up. I'm done. I went in there, signed the paperwork. That Friday, I was off to the military. I was out to boot camp out in Great Lakes.
Okay. Wow. So, just looking for the quickest turnaround possible, I see. So now, of course, you said that you graduated in 2003. And of course, we're kind of just coming off the heels of 9/11. Did 9/11, did that weigh into your decision to join the military at all?
No, not at all. It's funny because, I didn't have, at that time, I didn't know anybody in my family. I'm in Texas, in Houston, Texas, and it's not a big military area. Usually it's Army, not Navy. But I didn't have any family member that I knew of to my knowledge that was military. Nobody like, hey, you should go to the military. Nobody, it was just, I say it was a God, given kind of, you know, inspiration that said, hey, like you need to do something better than what you're given right now. And, you know, there was no rhyme or reason. And what was cool about that was, 4 years into my term, and I've been in 19 years now, but 4 years into my term, I came back from Okinawa, Japan. I was stationed with the Marines over at 3rd Med Battalion. And I came home, and my grandmother, who was very close to me, she was like a mom to me because, struggling growing up, in and out of, homes and stuff like that. My grandmother, she took the place of my father, who was absent most of my life. But when I got back from overseas, she said, hey, I want to share something with you. I was like, yeah. And she gave me all my grandfather's cruise books. He was in the Navy as a electrician's mate back in the Korean War. And so I have all of his like pictures and all his stuff from the military. But I didn't know that until after I joined, 4 years later. And so it was really cool to kind of see that, my grandfather, who was very successful, I followed in his footsteps and joined the military unknowingly. And now that's something that I carry with me. Like, he was really an example of what a man should be for me because I didn't have a father, So after the fact, I realized that, my grandfather had served in the Navy.
All right. So big inspiration there. So now I'm kind of curious. What was high school like for you? Because when you talked about how, the Navy initially was talking about having you go into, aircraft, would you say aircraft mechanics or what?
Yeah, aviation support, which is basically aircraft support. Mechanic. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, but I feel like aviation support would involve a good amount of academic prowess. So was like high school pretty good? Because I feel like you would need good ASVAB scores for aviation support. Then again, I could be wrong.
Yeah, not at all, dude. I graduated with a 1.8 GPA. Okay. If you look in the yearbook, I was that kid that was not most likely to succeed. In fact, if anybody was going to go to the game of life and put money down on somebody who they're going to bet to be successful, it wasn't me. I was hanging out with the wrong crowd. I was that kid, told you your mom not to hang out. Your mom told you not to hang out with. I struggled. I was a troubled kid, and I tried to find that external validation for an internal problem, and so that required me to act out, to always fight. I was always fighting because I lived in the wrong side of town, literally across the railroad tracks. And so where I grew up, it was rough, dude. Like you either fighting somebody or you're getting beat up for your lunch money.
Gotcha. So kind of growing up in and around Texas, like you just mentioned, and I imagine that like until this point, before you ship off for basic training at Great Lakes, that I'm assuming probably traveling or flying or anything like this probably wasn't really a part of your life. So I guess just what was that kind of like for you actually getting shipped off to basic, getting on a plane, arriving, at basic training? Is just what's kind of going through your mind at this point, kind of embarking on this new, fairly unknown adventure that you're about to go on?
Yeah, it was a mix of emotions, honestly. A lot of the fear of the unknown. Some of our biggest fears, anybody's biggest fear, is the fear of the unknown. And for me, you're getting on this plane and you're going somewhere you've never been before. I never left the state of Texas up until that point. But once I got to boot camp and all the yelling began and all the stuff happened, I took this stance, right? That this is really a clean slate for me. Like it's almost like I have the book of life that I'm writing of my life. And up until then, it's been a shit show. And now I turn the page and it's a clean slate. I get to write how this thing ends. I couldn't, really navigate how it was going to be, how it began. There's a lot of things I wish I could have changed and I could have made different, but I couldn't. But this was the opportunity the first opportunity I really had to say, you know what? Like I can decide how this is going to end. Like, what's this next chapter going to look like? And so that's what I did. And it turned from fear to almost like excitement. Like, okay, I'm going to take everything that's here, and you've probably been told this before, just like probably many of your viewers. People always say, remember where you came from. Well, I did. And every time something got hard or difficult, I would remember where I came from and say, you know what, this shit is not as hard as the things that I went through. Like if I go back to where I came from, it's a lot worse than this. So suck it up and let's get through it.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's interesting how you bring up that point about the blank slate. I come up with a similar point when I talk about boot camp when I joined the Marine Corps, and that is that everyone starts at zero. Like your drill instructors, they don't care how much money your family had, what color your skin is, what religion you practice, what neighborhood you grew up in. Everyone starts at zero, and where you go from there depends entirely on what value you bring to the organization. That's it. Right. So
yeah. And that's exciting because somebody like me who grew up in poverty and like not the smartest, not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most brightest, not the most talented. This was my opportunity to say, okay, now we're all starting at the starting. We're beginning at the starting line. Everybody has an equal opportunity here. Now, what can you do? And that was just, it was amazing for me because everything up until then was like, I compared myself against everybody else and competed and always said, well, you know, they're lucky they have their father and their parents are still married and like they have a good household. They don't have to worry about abuse and, you know, neglect. And here I am struggling, you know, it's not fair and everything, nothing's fair. But when you get to boot camp, everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah. It's all for naught at that point. Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's go to after getting out of basic, and then now you're about to go out into the fleet. So what were some of your early memories in the Navy? Like where did you go? Where'd you deploy to? Where'd you get stationed? You know, fill us in on early memories.
Yeah. You know, early in my career, I learned a really hard lesson. I'd say it's a hard lesson, but it really set the tone for where I'm at today. You know, a lot of people today, you know, we including me at that time, I thought that, you know, if I put the uniform on and I change my environment, you know, and I do something, I make the decision to do something different, then my life was going to change, right? I changed the external, but I still had a lot to grow in the internal. And when I went to A school, which is our basic school, I gave us our job, right? So we go from boot camp to A school, and this is like your technical job that, you know, you go to school to learn your job that you're going to be filling out in the career. Well, I got there and I did really well. Like I excelled in my class, and problem was, you know, I was attracting the same people that I had before I joined the military, right? In this world, this life, you don't get what you want. You get who you are. And for me, I still had a lot growing up to do. So I still hung out with the wrong kind of crowd. And for those who are listening to this, yes, in the military, they're still the same kind of people that you see on the civilian side in the military.
Right.
Yeah.
Except now they're bored. They're even more bored, and sometimes they're more disgruntled. And it gets exacerbated.
They're just wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
And so we graduated, right? And a lot of these guys were like, "Hey, we're gonna go out for drinks and dinner. You should come." Absolutely, I'll go. You know, I was gullible. You know, I wasn't a leader. At the time, I was a follower. And so, you know, we went on graduation night to celebrate our graduation. Somebody bought me a drink, and the problem was I was 18. Well, we got back to base, and the guy that was driving got breathalyzed and got a DUI. Well, they breathalyzed everybody in the car, and guess what? I was in the back seat, minding my business, and underage drinking, Article 92, failure to obey a lawful order. And so I went in front of the man, and they were like, "Hey, you're getting busted down. You know, restriction, all these things." And at that moment, I thought to myself, wow, I already screwed up, and I've only been in for, you know, a couple months. Like, here we go again. Like, here we go, Anthony, back to where you were before. And it made things worse is that my leadership, you know, all my E6 and E5, like, you're such a piece of crap. You're never going to amount to anything. You just screwed up your career. Good job. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, all the things that, you know, that you don't want to hear. Because the problem was that when they told me that, I believed it because I already saw myself as a loser, as somebody who wasn't good enough, who wasn't worthy. And when they told me that, they just validated how I felt. And so, and then I walked into, you know, my senior enlisted leader's office, and he said, "Look, man, everybody drinks. You just got caught. This can make you or it can break you." Right. And I took that and I was like, wow, here's a man that spoke life into me. The first man that I've met besides my RDC, my recruit division commander, that really believes in me. You know, up until that point, I didn't really have a positive male influence in my life. And when he told me that, I said, "Okay, thank you, Senior Chief. I appreciate that." You know, Senior Chief is an E8. So, you know, he's high ranking up there, almost the highest ranking enlisted that you can get. Well, I left there and I went to my first command, which is Bethesda, Maryland. And you said, you asked if 9/11 had an impact on me. Well, that was 2004, and Fallujah kicked off around then. And the Battle of Fallujah was very bloody. It was one of the most deadliest wars that we had in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Right.
Well, when I went to Bethesda, that was the pinnacle of Navy medicine. So most of my patients that I saw were coming from Iraq and Afghanistan, and they were blown to pieces. And my job that I got put into, was maxillofacial prosthetics. So my job was to build the facial parts for these people coming back from the war. And so we get patients and casualties that were blown, like their faces were blown off, and we'd have to put them back together. So here I am, an 18-year-old kid, you know, homeless just 6 months earlier. And now I'm in the OR, like saving people's lives. Like they were dying on the table left and right and like missing their body parts. And I was like, what in the world? You know what I mean?
Whoa.
Like it was like a shock to me. But you know what, though? What I found is that I finally had a challenge in my life that I was willing to face. You know, I had challenges all my life growing up, adversity, but this was a chance for me to become somebody. And, you know, that led to me being in critical care and trauma medicine later, which I do now. But I found myself thriving in there because I found my identity. Like I am somebody, and I'm somebody that can help people. Like this is something that helps me serve at a bigger capacity. But I say all that to say this is that, you know, my first duty station was Bethesda, Maryland. I picked up E4 right away. I ended up going to Okinawa, Japan. I picked up E5 within 2 years. The funny thing is that after Okinawa, I go back to C school, which is our advanced training. So I did so well in my job. They said, we're going to send you to an advanced school. Well, when I was in Okinawa, as you know, in the Marine Corps, they have what's called a MEF, Medical Expeditionary Force. Right. Third MEF was in Okinawa. It's one of the biggest, in the military, in the Marine Corps. Well, that command master chief, they're having to change a command, and the new master chief was coming to take over, and I was helping with the ceremony. Well, that third MEF master chief was that senior chief in A school that told me that, hey, you can still get over this. He was taking over as the master chief. He says, HM2, I was at E5 at the time. Now he goes, I know you. And I was like, yes, Master Chief. I was that guy that got in trouble in school and went to go see the man. He's like, wow, you're already E5 in 2 years. Like, that's amazing. I was like, yeah, thank you. I listened to what you said. You said this can make me or break me. I let it make me into who I am. And he's like, man, thank you. He's like, this is amazing. And so he ended up doing my boards for my Fleet Marine Force warfare device. He said, can I do your boards for you? And he gave me his FMF pin. I still wear it today as an officer 19 years later. And so I left Okinawa and I went back to Bethesda because of my specialty. And I ended up working with the President of the United States, which is President Obama. And I was his hospital corpsman for a while. And I got picked up for commissioning. So I got picked up for a commissioning as a nurse corps officer. So 400 people apply, 20 get selected a year. And so it was a very, very competitive program. And I got selected. And so I got picked up for an officer program. I went to school. They paid me to go to get my nursing degree. And then I ended up going from Bethesda to San Diego. And what was cool about that, now I was an 01, a Mustang, right? Going from enlisted officer, very, very hard to do. And I was walking the halls as a brand new ensign. And that master chief was walking down the hallway, and he was now the liaison for the Red Cross. And he saw me and he said, sir, and I'm like, hey, Master Chief. He goes, what in the hell? He's like, you're an officer now? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, oh my God. He's like, this is amazing. And I'm like, because you believed in me. And it was just really cool to see that come full circle and have one side of this leadership that says you're a piece of shit to one that believed in me. And the power of belief, right, is very powerful. If you can believe in the people that you lead and those you love, their potential is limitless. And that's what he did, is he believed in me, and I took it and ran with it. And I was able to go from, this broken kid now to a naval officer leading, thousands of people and saving people's lives. And it was all because he gave me a shot at another shot. So. Yeah, it really just goes to show just how a good few choice words from a powerful leader can really influence and really set someone down a good trajectory. I appreciate that story because I had a similar leader when I was in the Marine Corps, my staff NCOIC. At the time when I had just joined up with the unit, I was a 19-year-old PFC, which is an E2 for anyone who's not in the know for Marine Corps enlisted ranks. And, I can't remember exactly what I was going through at the time. I think I was just having a hard time fitting in. I didn't really like where I was stationed. I was in Jacksonville, North Carolina, where it's just the guy to girl ratio is like one girl for every 8 guys. It's tough fitting in there, I guess. But she said something like along the lines is that, if she said, blossom where you're planted was her words. Yeah. And basically, if you are living in a pile of crap, make that the biggest pile of crap, that the best pile of crap you could possibly make it, and blossom from that situation. And that really stuck with me. And actually, like within just a matter of days, no joke, after that conversation, after hearing those words from her, I actually went and enrolled in college. Like there was a community college right there. So I got going with academia right away. Now I hold a master's degree in field archaeology, and I'm a professional archaeologist now doing a job I absolutely love, and which was a job that required me having, a good, degree for. So that just her words sent me down that path to where I am now. And so you're absolutely right. Just a few good choice words from a leader can be very powerful and go a long way for sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So when you kind of first stepped into a leadership role, like one of the things I kind of sort of want to talk about is just, I guess, beginning to lead some of your peers. And what I mean by that is, and I see this a lot in the military, and I'm sure you probably have as well, where, especially on the enlisted side of things, where a couple of young like E2s and E3s, they basically kind of grow up, let's say, in the military together. But then one of them gets bumped up to E4 or E5 and is now an NCO and is leading the one before. And so I think there's a tough transition there where it's like, now your buddies, now one of them's a leader, and you kind of got to listen to what that person says. What has that been something that you faced when you kind of started taking on leadership roles? And if so, what was kind of how did you kind of go about that situation? Yeah. I remember, getting selected for my program, and before I went off to school, I got picked up for E6, and a lot of people were upset about it, to be honest with you, because I was making E6 at that time. It was 6 years in the military, which is very fast, especially for a hospital corpsman. And you know, some of the people that I was getting promoted with were my bosses when I was at E2, E3. They were E5s, and now we're making E6 together. And they're like, it's not fair because, you're taking somebody's quota. You're about to get commissioned anyway. Like, how are you still making enlisted rank? And I was like, well, I earned it. I got to work my ass off.
Right.
And it is what it is. Right. And then I get commissioned. And now it's like, wow, like I'm ahead of the game. But the thing about me, right? Like there was for early in my career, I didn't give myself enough credit for how much I've accomplished. Like I was always go, like looking for the next thing. And I didn't take time to appreciate how far I've come. Well, that for me, it portrayed a sense of humility, right? And to be honest, for other people, like, oh man, you're a humble leader, like you've done a lot, you accomplished a lot, you've done really good, you helped a lot of people. And for me, what it really was that lack of self-worth and self-value. Like I didn't see myself as somebody of value or somebody of worth, and so therefore I didn't ever act as such. It wasn't until, 2015, 2016, when I got done with my first duty station as a nurse, that I realized, like, man, like you'll never outperform your self-image. And if you're going to go up, you got to grow up and you got to give up. And for me, a lot of the stuff that I had to give up was that negative self-talk, that negative self-judgment, that self-critic that we all have that says, who do you think you are? The imposter syndrome, all that stuff. And right. I had that because, here I am working with some of the best surgeons and the best doctors and the best healthcare providers in the world. And I'm just some kid who, came from the streets, and I didn't feel like I belonged. And I felt like a black sheep. And, I finally got some mentors in my life, and, some coaching from outside the military. And they're like, dude, the world sees you a lot different than you see yourself. Like you don't see yourself as this person who is very influential, and like your journey is unique. Like it's not something that you should take for granted. Like you went through all the things you went through and got to where you are for a reason. And it took for me a while to let that sink in, because I was like, maybe I got lucky, whatever the case may be. And I think when it came to leading my peers, what happened is that I started serving a lot of people. Like I was a big giver. Anywhere I could help, I did. And, my peers saw that, and it inspired them, because little did I know the people all around me were struggling too. But the only thing that was different between me and them is that I had the balls to share it and say, hey, you know what? I'm nobody special. This is my journey. And for a long time, I was ashamed of that. I was ashamed that I grew up poor, that I grew up, and I was homeless when I joined the military. I was ashamed that, I didn't have a father growing up, and that my mom struggled with her mental health and gave us away at a young age. And I was ashamed of all those things. And so therefore I never shared it, because I didn't want people to see me as that person. I wanted them to love me for who I was. But here's the thing. Nobody cares about your success. They'll like you because of your success, but they'll love you because of your struggle. And that's because we've all had it, right? If I was to come on here and tell you how many degrees I have and how many things I've accomplished and all these things, it won't be a matter of time before your audience says, well, the guy's building a wall between us because we don't relate. But when I sit here and share the things that I grew up around, I guarantee you it connects more with people. My struggles connect more with people than any success, because everybody has struggles and nobody likes them, but when you overcome them, I believe that it's your duty, it's your calling to share that with people, because there's other people who are going through or will go through what you've been through and what you've gotten over.
Right. And yeah.
That shame has to get thrown out the window before you can serve people.
Right. Now, how do you kind of sort of, I don't know if I'd say strike a balance. Maybe balance is the right word here, but but obviously you don't want to dwell on this negative self-talk or or let the past keep up to you. But at the same time, though, you do kind of want to remain humble to the point where you recognize that there's still room for me to grow. Like there's a lot more that I could do to improve myself. I mean, obviously, when you commit to being a leader in anything, you pretty much commit yourself to being a lifelong student. Yeah. So I guess, how do you kind of sort of, again, I'm not sure what word to use here, but it's just like not getting so much into negative self-talk, but still understanding that you still got a long way to go. I mean, what does that conversation look like, internally with yourself?
Yeah. I always tell people, hey, never discount how far you've come, but never discredit how far you still have to go. That tension between where you've come from and where you've been to where you still want to go, that tension is what keeps us growing. And nobody likes somebody who comes in and just starts trauma dumping on people and saying, well, you don't know how tough my life was. And you don't know the struggle that I've been through. Like, we've all heard that, right? And if you're doing
it's
that,
like a race to the bottom, you know, when everyone talks about that. Yeah.
Right. But what you do want to do, and especially here's the deal, right? The difference is when you have accomplished something, only then can you help people. You can never take people somewhere. You can't take somebody where you've never been. Like, you can't. And if I haven't accomplished anything in my life, and I'm still accomplishing things, I'm still striving for goals and, you know, doing things out of my comfort zone and pushing the envelope. Because if I'm going to go on stage and speak in front of 1,000 people, if I'm going to go and coach, you know, my coaching group that I have, I got to continue to still grow. I can't be a preacher. I got to be a practitioner.
Right.
And, you know, when I walk into a room, especially as an officer, people, and it goes for anybody here, when you walk into a room, you have a certain level of influence. The moment that you open your mouth, it either goes up or it goes down. You get to decide what it is. Mm-hmm. And for me, as somebody at my level, it works to my benefit to share kind of a little bit about me. Like, hey, you might have not known this, but because people will look at me and say, well, he has it all figured out. He must have came from the academy. He must be, you know, had everything given to him. He must have had a silver spoon in his mouth. He must, you know, parents must have paid for his college, you know, all these things. And then when I tell them like, hey, I was sitting in your seat 18 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to not feel confident. I know what it's like to have a flawed self-image and low self-worth. And now people are like, oh, please tell me, because what I see is not what I'm hearing. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, how did somebody like you go from there to there? Because I want to be like you. I want to get to where you're at.
Right. Yeah. Because, you know, you're not a 20-year overnight success story. You're a 20-year overnight success story is what you are, pretty much. And that's all what they see. I mean, they see you in the present, but know nothing about the past. So, and, you know, you're absolutely right. You know, and I noticed this, like, and I try not to do this so much myself, like especially now, like I just told you that I recently just got promoted to a lead archaeologist within my own company. And, you know, I try not to use my credentials as like, you know, a means to solidify or to, I guess, validate my role as a leader. You know, I don't say, oh yeah, I got this master's degree. You know, I've done this, I've been here, I've, you know, all these things. Like you said, action is where it takes place, because it's just like, how do you treat your people? Like, what are you like out on the job, or in this, that, and the other? And it just really just leading from the front. You know, I really love that scene. Do you ever have you seen the movie We Were Soldiers, right?
That's right. Yeah.
When Mel Gibson's character is giving that speech where he says, I'll be the first man to step on the battlefield and I'll be the last one to step off. Yep. And, you know, I kind of do pretty much like the exact same thing. Like when we were walking out of the field today with my team, it's just, I'm taking up the rear. So I'm the make sure I don't leave anyone behind. And I think, you know, for the most part, my team appreciated that aspect. So, so it's really, you know, your actions as a leader are going to carry much more weight than what you say you have or your credentials on paper.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, the philosophy that I've had throughout the military is, and it's helped me, you know, very well. It's served me well, is, you know, never give a command that you have yet to follow. Never give a command that you're not willing to follow. Meaning, I will never tell you to do something that I have yet to do or that I'm not willing to do. And in fact, if I've never done it before, I'll be the first to lead the way. And I'll lead the charge and I'll show you how to get it done.
Right.
And that's very important, because we have a lot of leaders today who lead by their mouth instead of by example. Your actions will always speak louder than your words, and nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. Yeah. Because exactly. Like, and one of the examples that I have here is that, you know, when we dig as archaeologists, you know, we dig in pairs usually, but sometimes we have an odd number of archaeologists in the field. And so I say, you know what, let me dig by myself and let me take on the role of both shoveling and screening, you know, archaeology tasks. Yeah. So like I'll do both, because, you know, again, it's just, how can I expect any member of my team to do this by themselves if I'm not going to do it by myself? So again, like you said, lead by example, for sure. So, all right. So kind of going along like those lines, maybe shifting gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about fitness, because I believe that maintaining, you know, our health and wellness is pretty critical, well, for virtually anything that we do in our lives. And I think even, you know, especially as a leader, So I guess just how do you kind of sort of make sure you're maintaining your own health and wellness, especially when you have so many other areas, responsibilities that you have to fulfill, not only as a naval officer, but also as a husband and a father, and just any other like area that you're expected to show up in. So how do you fit fitness in the midst of all those responsibilities?
Yeah, that's my secret weapon. If anybody's looking here and saying, you know what, Anthony, I don't know how to influence people. I don't know how to get people to listen to me. Here's the thing that I found. If you want people to respect you, you got to respect yourself first. If you want people to love you, you got to love you first. If you want people to be compassionate with you, you got to be compassionate yourself, right? And how you do that, right, is by taking care of yourself. And I said, when I walk into a room, I have a certain level of influence. Now, I'm in pretty good shape, and this is not a humble brag. This is just the truth. When I walk into a room, people can tell, like, hey, one of his core values is fitness, because the guy looks like a freaking G.I. Joe, right? And I use it to my advantage because I sit at tables with people that are way higher ranking than me, right? They have higher authority, more credentials than me. But when I walk into a room and they see me, like, this guy means business. Like, he's a leader, because if I look at him and see that he takes care of himself like that, if he can lead him, then he can lead me. And here's the thing. If you can't lead you, then you have no business trying to lead me. Right. And so that's how I look at that. And right now I'm training for an Ironman. I've never done that before. Oh, and wow. If you know what an Ironman is, yeah, it's a pain. It's a beast.
Like, you got your work cut out for you there, brother.
And I'm working out twice a day, every single day. Right. And this is 4 o'clock in the morning, or this is at lunchtime, or late at night after the kids have gone to bed. And now I'm running, 30, 40 miles a week. I'm biking over 100 miles a week. I'm swimming over 10 miles a week. And before, I did bodybuilding. I was competitive in bodybuilding. I did powerlifting. I did the Spartan races and all that stuff. But I'm always trying to push the envelope to something different than I've never done before. And I always tell people, I set God-sized goals to where I know I can't do it by myself. Like, there's literally days where I'm praying, like, God, please get me through this, man. Like, I can't do this alone. And so I'm training for an Ironman, and I'll tell you what, like, I'm doing very well. Like, I'm progressing very well. I'm excited for the progress that I'm making, but it gives me confidence. And most leaders today, if you're in leadership, and most of the things that I hear from people is that I lack confidence to lead people. Well, here's why most people lack confidence, is because they lack consistency. Mm-hmm. And I know, and this is the mindset and the stance that I take, and you can take it how you want if you're listening to this, but when I wake up at 4 a.m. and I bike 50 miles before I even start my day, or I wake up at 4 a.m. and I swim, 1,800 meters before the day even begins, or I get up and I run 10 miles before while everybody else is still sleeping. When I take a shower and get my uniform on, I go to work, I have a little pep in my step. You know why? Because I know no motherfucker has ever done or is not doing what I'm doing. So therefore, I'm setting the standard. I'm being the standard. Right. And so when I go into a meeting, or when I go into an interaction or an interview, or I'm going into, a counseling with somebody, there's a little bit more confidence and conviction in who I am, because I know that I'm doing the work. And I can look across the table and I can tell that person I'm talking to, chances are 99%, they are not doing the work. And so here's the thing about leadership or any relationship. The person who has the most greater awareness is in control of that relationship or that conversation. And so when I go into a meeting with the board of directors and I walk in there, I'm confident because I'm in integrity. Like, I've done what I told myself I was going to do. And as I look across the table or across the room, I look at everybody else and I can tell you're not keeping the promises to yourself. One, by the way you look, but most importantly, by the way that you talk and the way that you show up. If you can't even show up to a meeting, there's no way you're showing up for those you lead and those you love.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So because it's just, absolutely. And because, when you talk about getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I mean, what is it with you Navy guys in 4 a.m.? I guess, I'll see all you Navy guys.
I got kids. I got a wife. I got a career. That's the only time that I can get it done,
Yeah, for sure. And even just sometimes just simply getting out of bed at 4 a.m. Because I mean, like, how many people say that they want to get up that early, then they just stare at their clock, and then they'll just actually wait till their alarm goes off and then they'll get moving, right? Rather than just actually getting up. So, I mean, heck, for many people, it could even just be a big win just to get out of that bed and just get yourself moving. Get up, make the bed, brush your teeth, just do something, move your body.
Here's the thing, Josh, right? Like, and for those who are listening, probably think this guy's nuts or like whatever, like, I'm not getting up at 4. Here's the question I ask myself when I contemplate, because there are days where I wake up and I hit the snooze button. I'm like, you know what? And I started having this conversation in my head saying, no, it's okay, man. You did a lot yesterday. You're good. You're in shape. You don't really have to. And you're right. I don't have to. But then I asked myself this question: who loses if I do not win? Mm-hmm. Who loses if I do not decide to get my ass out of this bed and go do what I said I was going to do? Well, it's not just me. It's the people that I lead and those I love. My kids are going to feel it. My wife's going to feel it. The people that I'm responsible for, the 2,000 students that I lead every day, like they're going to feel it because I decided to push the damn snooze button. So when I take a L, there's people around me that are going to feel that. They're going to have a bad day too because I didn't do what I said I was going to do. Because when I do get up and say, you know what, tomorrow I'm getting up at 4:00 and I'm doing my shit, and I do it, guess what? They get the best of me, not the rest of me.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You got to win with yourself first before you can help others win. So yeah, it really is that simple. I mean, like there's no other way we can actually really, break it up. It's just, you got to win with yourself first. And, and then that's the thing. It's just, sometimes it does involve, maybe being a little bit selfish to the degree that, it's just, you're getting up at 4 a.m. because, well, frankly, you don't want to deal with anyone else just yet. This is your time. Like that's your time for you to look after yourself. And if you got yourself taken care of, then you can show up more effectively for others. I mean, it just goes back to the notion of, you got to put, like if the plane's going down, you got to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help someone else put theirs on. So for sure. All right. So, okay. Now just out of curiosity. So you've done all these physical challenges. I'm intrigued now because I've kind of made it a point to do a good amount of physical challenges throughout my own life. Of course, boot camp. I had a short stint as an MMA fighter. I have one amateur fight in the cage, and I won, by the way. Nice. Let's see. What else have I done? Yes, I ran a marathon. I ran the Marine Corps marathon back in 2007. So got a marathon under my belt. And did a Spartan race. I did a Tough Mudder. I cycled 300 miles across the Gambia, which is a small West African country. I cycled the entire length of it. And most recently, I walked across the entire state of Michigan, 1,200 miles, because, it's just maybe I don't, it's not something I feel like I have to prove to myself, but I just feel like, just taking on these different types of challenges, it's very rewarding and fulfilling. And just to kind of, again, see what my own capabilities are. So you were talking about, you said you did bodybuilding and then you were a power lifter and then now you're doing endurance sports. So I guess just talk to us about the transition from basically putting on size and aesthetics to, just pure endurance performance, talk to us about that.
Yeah. Bodybuilding for me was kind of it goes back to, you want to change the physical, hoping that it's going to help you with the mental, and it doesn't work that way. Your mental has to go first and then the physical follows suit. Right. And for me, I was pretty big. I was about 225. I was benching about 450. I was pretty good size. I had some sponsors for supplements, supplement companies that were sponsoring me. And I looked great. I was doing well. I put everything I had into it, right? And this is before kids and everything. But my why was just I wanted to feel and look strong. And while I look strong and I look great, right, I still was empty on the inside. And it was there that I found that you can change the way you look all you want, but until you change the way you see yourself, nothing ever changes. And so I had this really like flawed reality of like what I look like. I would look in the mirror and say, okay, I need to be better. And people would come up to me and just like, oh my gosh, like you look amazing. Like, guys wanted to be me and women wanted to be with me, it's every man's dream. But I couldn't see that for myself. I saw myself as this like weak person. And again, it was just that flawed self-image and that brokenness on the inside that I still had to work on. And so, for me, bodybuilding was just like, if I can just be strong and just as strong as I can be and just as big as I can be, then maybe, I wouldn't have to be so afraid or fearful of people hurting me. Right. And that wasn't the case. It was really weird because I got to that point and I thought to myself, like, man, this isn't changing anything on the inside. I still see myself as this young kid or this young man that was broken still, and now, I was dating my now wife and, I was eating everything like healthy, making all my meals and everything like that. And, once we started dating, I kind of put that aside and focused on our relationship and on my career, especially, as a brand new officer. I started realizing like, man, you know what? Now you have to work on you. Like it has to be from the inside out. And so I went into, and that's how I got into leadership and development and like really focusing on my personal growth and like growing from being bigger on the inside than I was on the outside. I had a body like Tarzan, but a mind like Jane, it was all backwards. And I had to realize that, hey, you have to go inside and dig deep and go back in those places you don't want to go and uncover those deep, dark, broke pieces and put them back together before the outside would follow suit. And then of course we had kids, and now it's like, okay, it's about balance, man. I can't, tell my kids, no, we're not going to get pizza tonight because I don't want to eat pizza, or we're not going to get ice cream. There's no ice cream in the house because dad doesn't eat ice cream. Like he's too fit or whatever. And I started finding a balance and realizing, man, you don't have to be like that. Like it's not healthy, one. And two, you don't have to be too extreme. Too much of anything is not good. And for me, I was in the gym for 2-3 hours a day, and I was eating like these different chicken and rice and fish and rice and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, like, I think that I look back at it, I'm like, man, that was such a psychological issue. And it was so selfish because it was all about me. It was so self-centered. And so when I got married and had kids, I was like, like I want to be fit, but I don't need to be that crazy to the extreme, And so then I took a break, and I had some friends that were doing Spartan races. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I signed up for a trifecta. I did a Tough Mudder, and then I did a trifecta, which is you do all 3 Spartan races within a 12-month period. And I did all those, and I was like, man, this is really good because it challenged me to get out of this mindset of like, just go to the gym and lift weights and be as strong as you can, to now you have to really like train and like get your endurance up. And like, it's challenging for me. I hate running. I hate swimming. I hate biking. Like those are 3 things I just don't do. I hate cardio.
And now you're doing a triathlon.
And now I'm doing, yeah. And now I love it because it's just, man, like it's really, and it goes back to this, right? At the end of the day, for me, it's looking at your weakness and then killing your weakness, right? Like my weakness is like I can run, like I can do it. PT, military, we do it all the time. But biking and swimming, there's no reason for me to do it. But that doesn't mean that I can't. And now every time, for the first couple of months, I've been training now for about 2.5 months. The first couple of weeks, the first month, I would have conversations with sit in my truck at the pool and like, man, I don't need to go in there. I don't want to go in there. It's okay. You don't have to. Hey, why the hell are you doing an Ironman? And I'd have these dialogues with myself. And I'm like, you know what? Kill that bitch voice and get your ass in the pool and start swimming. And And for me, that's what it's about. It's about finding those weaknesses, those little areas in your life where you don't feel like doing it, and then getting your ass up and going to do it, because that's how discipline is made. It's doing the things that you said you were going to do, regardless of how you feel, keeping giving yourself a command and following through. And for me, I said, I'm going to do an Ironman. And now here we are, 3 months into the training, and I had to get over that mental hurdle of, you don't have to, you shouldn't, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. All the things that, we tell ourselves. And I think that that's where resilience is made.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I had a lot of those like internal dialogues with myself when I was hiking across Michigan, because I started at a little bit of a weird time. I started like towards the end of August, and I started in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. Now this is getting close to fall, where the temperature just starts to drop off pretty quickly around that time. And by the time I finished, it was December 15th. So we're well into winter at this time, at this point. And so there were definitely many moments waking up in the morning, there's snow on my tent, I'm in my sleeping bag. The last thing I want to do is get out there and face the cold. But the reality is, it's like, I had to kind of tell myself, it's like, Josh, if you don't get out of the sleeping bag, you're stuck here. You have to move. Like that there is no other option. Like, no one's going to come out here and get you. You got to get up, you got to pack up, you got to move. And so that's, again, where the resilience comes from, is just, you just do what you have to do. And obviously, many people probably won't find themselves in their situation where they're out there in the woods, and tucked away in a sleeping bag. But it's just going back to what you said earlier. It's just that you made the commitment to yourself. You told yourself that you were going to do this. And if you don't do what you said you're going to do, well, that makes you a liar. You're out of integrity. So don't lie to yourself and get out there and get moving.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, right? Like, you always tell people, do you trust a liar? And they're like, no. Do you believe a liar? And they're like, no. Well, what do you think happens when you lie to yourself? You don't trust yourself, and you don't believe in yourself. And that's why most people don't have belief in their ability to do something bigger than their current circumstance, because they continue to lie to themselves. So it's simple.
Right. Absolutely. And so now getting ready for this Ironman, when is it? And this is in Hawaii. Is that where the Ironman takes place, in Hawaii?
No, they have them all over the place. This one's going to be in Galveston, Texas, but the Ironman world championship is in Hawaii. Kona.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm far from that.
Sure.
But it's in Galveston, April 3rd. So I got, roughly, I don't know what we're on, November, December, January, February, about 6 months, give or take.
Okay, so and then the Ironman consists of, is it like 2.5 mile swims, and then I'm going to probably get some of these numbers off. Then I want to say 112-mile bike, and then a full marathon. Is that how
Yeah.
it's broken down?
Yeah. And but when I'm doing a half, so it's
Oh, okay.
1.2 mile swim, 55-mile bike, and then half marathon. So it's split that in half. But a full Ironman, yeah, it's 2.5 mile swim, 112-mile bike, and then a marathon. Yeah.
Incredible, man. It's baffling just to see. It's just the athleticism and the physical feats that some
It
people are
pushed
able to
it. Yeah.
accomplish out there. So, well, it just seems like, I mean, we're always pushing physical boundaries. It seems like, I mean, I
Yeah.
can't remember the name of the runner a couple years ago who was able to run that sub 2 hour marathon. For the
Yeah.
longest time, people thought that was impossible until someone
Right.
does it. And then now,
Yeah.
for all we know, someone's going to probably even, get it down to maybe like hour 45 for all we know. Who knows? I
Yeah.
mean, it's just like so many people think that certain physical feats are impossible, and then someone does it. And then that just
Right.
completely changes the game. So,
Yeah. Well, and 90% of it's mental. 10% of it's physical. You can be in great shape, but if your mental faculty is not there, you won't make it. And for me, the biggest hurdle was the mental barrier of, I've never done this before. And again, it goes back to that. When I joined the military, fear of the unknown. You never done it before, so of course you're afraid. Getting in the pool and swimming, like, it was tough for me. I could swim, but not 1.2 miles. I've never done that before. And it takes a lot to get your breathing down, your strokes down. It's all about timing. It's all about just being mentally calm and focused. And it builds that focused muscle. When you're running 10, 12 miles a day, it's all mental. You're stuck with you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So before we kind of round out our conversation here on leadership, now, of course, this is like a multiple podcast topic, like leadership. That topic is just so vast. Like, we can go on forever.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally have an entire podcast around leadership, and there's been full on books written many times over about leadership. So I guess if we just wanted to create like a summary, if someone, let's say, is right now listening, a leader themselves, an aspiring leader, or in my case, I'll say a newly appointed leader, if there were just, let's say, three, like if you could pick like a top three, like character, like leadership characteristic or trait that one should probably maybe focus on to kind of, let's say, trump any other leadership traits that we can think of, what do you think those would be?
Yeah. Number one, you have to have your core values. Like, military talks about, Marine Corps has them, Navy has them, Army has them, everybody has them, right? But I think the most important thing you can do as a leader is identify your core values, right? What do you truly value? And when you do this, it allows you to make decisions very quickly, and it allows you to make them more confidently. But also, it allows you to make this. It allows you to make decisions and approach situations from an internal perspective, not an external, right? Because sometimes in leadership, what I found is you have to make decisions that might not go, that might not serve you. They might serve other people more than you, but that's okay, because as long as you go with your core values, you'll never have regret. But when we're so focused on the external, we make decisions based on what we think other people might want, not what we truly value. And so, number one, you have to have core values. You have to get your core values identified and dialed in. Number two, after you have core values, you need to create a SOP. And as you know, in the military, standard operating procedure.
Right.
And the standard operating procedure for your life is how you operate on a daily basis, not a weekly, monthly, yearly, annual, whatever. It's every single day how you operate, so that you display what you truly value, so that you don't have to go tell people who you are or what you stand for. They can look at you and say, Josh, he values people because he cares about us. He's the last one in the field. He'll go dig by himself before he makes us stay alone. Josh, he values fitness and health because this guy is a monster in the gym and he's always pushing himself physically. Josh values other people, right? Mentorship, leadership, whatever it is. So whatever your core values are, your standard operating procedure is how you show up for yourself so that other people will look at you and say, man, like, I can tell what he truly values. Like, people know I value family because I don't stay in the office till 6 o'clock at night. If there's nothing to do, my team, I tell them, go home. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You did everything. Go home, be with your family. Because I know that when you leave here, chances are you're going to deploy. You're going to be gone. You're not going to be able to see them. And, for me, when I look at my core values and I say, okay, my number one core value is my faith, but number two is my family. When work comes up with something, or some idea, and I have a decision, do I go home early or do I stay here and put in the work? I choose coming home because I value my family over my finance, my work.
Right.
Now there's things where times I can't make that decision, but at the level that I'm at now, I have every opportunity to make that decision. And I will always choose my family over my career, because I've seen people who choose their career over their family and now they're left alone. You know what I'm saying? And so you identify your core values, number one. Number two, you create a standard operating procedure on how you're going to display those values every single day so that people can look at you and without a shadow of doubt know what you truly value. Number three, consistency. It's not about the grand slams. It's about the base hits. Every day, get a win. No matter if that's, hey, I got out of bed 30 minutes early today. Hey, you know what? Today, I told my wife I love her. You know what? Today, I spent an hour with the kids. Today, we had family as a dinner. We had dinner as a family. Whatever that is for you, you have to get a win. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be small. But it could be, hey, you know what? I went for a walk for 30 minutes today because I'm changing my health. Hey, I gave up drinking today because I want to make some changes in my life. Whatever that is, every day, if you stay consistent in getting a win, you tally them up over time, you will end up feeling like a winner and you will have a life that you are proud of. You see, so many people are really like, I'm going to do this. And they do it for 1 or 2 days, maybe a week. And then all of a sudden they're back to where they were before because they didn't stay consistent.
Right.
But here's the other thing about consistency. As a leader, consistency breeds confidence, and nobody will ever have confidence or be convinced in yourself, in you as a leader, until you have conviction in who you are as a leader. All right. And when you have conviction in who you are and what you can do, only then will people be convinced in your ability to lead. And so you have to be, and that comes from consistency, every single day showing up and not letting your emotions or your feelings get in the way of what you need to do.
Right. Yeah. And then sometimes with consistency, practically speaking, make yourself a checklist. Like, I did 75 hard earlier this year. And that was one thing I liked about the app is that it's a checklist. You got to check that you did each and every one of those things. So, I mean,
every single day,
do what you got to do to maintain that consistency, even if that means writing it down. I mean, it's just, and sometimes it's like when you just try to keep it all up here, it could get lost with everything that you got going on. But if you got it written down, you got those critical tasks in line, just do them, check them off.
And keep it simple. It doesn't have to be all crazy and difficult and wow, it's a notepad and a pen. And all right, today my top 3 targets or my top 5 targets are this. And then knock them out. You can get them done, before noon every day. And then guess what? You're done. Simple as that.
Yeah. So, absolutely. So, all right, brother. Well, we are kind of starting to wind down on time. But before we kind of start wrapping up here, I do want to give you a few moments to, tell us a little bit about like what you got going on and how people can connect with you. I know you got a podcast out there. You got your Lead 360 Academy. So I guess, just plug some of those things for us that people can, reach out and connect with you on.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And, for me, guys, if you want to follow me, Instagram at Anthony Waite Official, you can find me on Facebook. I do have the Lead 360 Academy, and my podcast is Whose Oar Is This? And so that's comes from the proverb, if the wind does not favor, take to the oar. And that means that, life will never give you what you want, but it'll always give you what you need if you're willing to do the work.
I like that.
Yeah. And like that. It has a little Navy kind of, naval tick to it. And, for me, it's all about just kind of sharing my journey and like things that I've found. And as I'm actively leading and engaged right now, it's bringing these day-to-day activities, and bringing them to the masses and saying, hey, look, man, here's what it is. Because again, I really believe that, you have to be a practitioner, not just a preacher. And in order to do that, you must be in the game. You can't be on the sideline barking orders. You got to be in the game, putting in the reps. And so for those of you who would like to follow me, just find me on social media, send me a message, let me know. I'm an open book, and I don't have a book to sell. I don't have a program to sell, but I'd love to connect with people and learn. And if there's anything that I can do to serve, you just let me know. And here I am.
All right. And I'll get all those linked up in the show notes for this episode so our listeners can go and find them there. All right. Now, another thing I do with all my guests that come on the All Around Adventure podcast is I ask my guests to issue a challenge to our listeners because, we covered a lot of great information today and we went over a lot of good practical and, tactical tips and things like that. But action, as we've mentioned, has to follow up if we really want to get things done. So what challenge would you issue to our listeners today for them to go out there and start living a more adventurous life?
Yeah, I would say there's 3 things, right? My challenge for you is to be more intentional with how you show up every single day, right? Every day, have a plan. because intention allows you to be of influence. And the thing about influence is that it goes both ways, good or bad, right? Hitler, he was a leader. He had influence. Stalin, he had influence, right? So did, Gandhi. The only difference was that they chose whether it was good or for bad, And so when you're intentional with how you show up every day, it allows you to really get um, confident in who you are and have integrity with who you are, and therefore it allows you to influence other people in a positive manner. And with that influence, now you can have an impact in the world. And I believe that, especially in times like these today, the thing that we need more of is people who are looking to be intentional with their time, be a person of influence, and have an impact in the lives of those they lead and those they love. Absolutely. And here's the thing, guys: start right in your own home. Right? If you can't lead from behind your front door, you have no business leading outside of it. Right. So if you want to make a difference, start right where you're at with those you love, and then go out there and be an influence and impact in the world. And when you do that, right, I've never heard somebody say the problem that we have today is that we have too many good leaders. I've never heard that before.
Not once, not once.
The world is waiting for you to show up. They're waiting for you to go out there and get on the field and play ball in this game called life. So what are you waiting for? That would be my challenge.
All right. Right on, brother. All right. So what I have for you next is my final three. These are three fun questions. At least I like to think that they're fun questions that all my guests get asked at the end of the show. So of course you're going to get asked these as well. And the first of these three questions is, what is your favorite place that you've been to so far?
Oh, nice. Yeah. My favorite place that I've been to so far is actually Vietnam, believe it or not.
Okay, Vietnam. I think that's a first, actually, to come up on the podcast. I've heard other countries around Southeast Asia, but I think Vietnam might be the first, I think. So
it's a beautiful place, man. Like, I'd go back there with my family and go on vacation for sure.
All right. Were you stationed there at all when you were in the throughout your naval career?
So, my last deployment, I went to probably about 5 or 6 different countries, and Vietnam was one of them. And I was just blown away by just the beauty. I mean, they obviously have their areas where it's still affected by the Vietnam War.
Sure.
But for the most part, they've rebuilt it, and it's just become just an amazing place. The people are nice. The food is great. The hotels, everything is just amazing. And they're really fixing that place up.
All right. Outstanding. So Vietnam, I'll have to put that on the list as well. Yeah. It's been a while since I've been back to Asia, so I'm going to have to, get myself out there at some point in time for sure. All right. So next question. What is one thing on your bucket list that you have yet to do?
It's funny. It goes back to traveling is get to Europe. I want to go to Spain and Italy, and I want to travel the Mediterranean. So I would love to get to Europe.
Okay. All right. So, I do want to get back to the Mediterranean as well. There's an interesting thing about countries I've been to that border the Mediterranean, and this is totally random, but they got a lot of cats for some reason. Like every country that I've been to that touches the Mediterranean, there's a lot of cats roaming around. That's like Israel, there's a lot of cats everywhere. Morocco, cats everywhere, like in a lot of the cities. I'm just thinking, what's with these Mediterranean countries and all the cats roaming around? Yeah. I don't know. It's just weird, but still, though, the Mediterranean is really nice. I went swimming in there, and it's just really nice, pristine water. So I hope you get a chance to see it soon. So for sure. And so speaking of animals, that's actually what the third question is. And it is, what is your favorite animal? And have you seen this animal in the wild?
Oh, man, my favorite animal. I would have to say it's a lion. My favorite animal is a lion, just for what it stands for and what it means, and all the things behind it. I have not seen it in the wild. I've seen it in the zoo and of course all over the place, but never in the wild.
At least not yet. At least
not yet.
All in due time, brother.
Yeah, and hopefully I never come face to face with one. That's for sure.
All right on, brother. Well, that's it, man. That's all the questions I have for you today. But before we wrap it up here, let's just recap one more time where our listeners can go connect with you. So social media, website, just lay it out for us, brother. Yeah. What do you got?
Yeah, Instagram at Anthony Waite Official, and then you can find me on Facebook at Anthony Waite. And actually, my website, I forgot about that, anthonywaitespeaks.com. You can go there and you can find everything out on there. There's a blog, there's my podcast, all that stuff's on there. And then the podcast is Whose Or Is This with Anthony Waite. And but if you want to contact me, Instagram is the best way to go. Just shoot me a message, follow me on there. I'll follow you back. And yes, I'm a real person. I do all my stuff, so I'll answer you back, and we can have a chat. So thank you, Josh. It's an honor to be here, man. I've been following you for a long time. I love everything that you do, man. And I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of all the work that you're doing and still being consistent with this and serving people as you continue to grow as a leader and as you continue to grow in your career. I mean, it's just really cool to see. So I just want to say that, man.
All right. Well, I really appreciate that, brother. And I really appreciate you being here and sharing your insight with myself and the listeners. And, I hope we can really get a chance to go out and hunt together here pretty soon. I definitely want to get down to Texas sometime and see if I can get some more hogs to put in my freezer. So let's do it for sure, man.
Sounds good, brother.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.